Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn, and I'm here with co-authors Bonnie Traymore and R.G. Belsky to talk about their new psychological thriller, Swipe. Welcome to the show, R.G. and Bonnie.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi.
Here's the print one.
There you go. There, I like the print one too. That's a
I'm having
great
fun
great
with my
cover.
copy to hold up. So,
That's quite all right. So I have to ask, how do two authors who live at opposite sides of the earth find themselves co-authoring a book?
you
Bonnie,
know,
what do you think?
I want to say I have asked myself that question many times, and I don't know the answer. It's mainly because Bonnie was very persistent and very enthusiastic about doing this. And the quick version of the story is we did not know each other and had never come in contact with each other. I reviewed one of Bonnie's books for Book Trip, the web,
Nice.
and I was very impressed by it. And as you know, sometimes I want to do, I just looked her up online, sent her a note, and said, I really liked your book. You're really good. And she then read one of my books and said, wow, I really like your book. You're good. And at some point during this dialogue, she stunned me by saying, why don't we write a book together? And this is the result.
All right. No, it's amazing how connections are made and how something like this can be a result of it. I've seen it so many times in this industry where just a chance meeting can really turn into something special. So I'm really happy that that happened for both of you, where you came together and wrote such a wonderful book. Like I said, I've got some questions for you regarding the plot of it a little bit later here, but I was curious. Do you recall what sparked the actual idea for kind of this dating app gone wrong, Bonnie? Go ahead.
Yeah, it was my idea, and I approached Dick. It happened after a friend of mine had a particularly bad date. I won't say if one of them is represented in the book, but it could be. It's fictional, um,
Potentially.
potentially. And she was telling me about it, and she said, you really should just write like a funny book about all of our bad, like just a nonfiction book about our bad. And I said, no, I should write a book about one woman who goes and takes revenge on these, creepy guys that she's meeting in her dating app. And I always had this idea of like having this either a reporter or even like first it was a reporter, then I thought it could be, a detective, somebody going undercover and trying to find her on the app. I just thought that would be a fun plot. And then I just thought about Dick Belsky or R.G. Belsky and his books, and our writing styles are pretty similar. And he was a real crime journalist. And I thought, he's going to do a better job with the journalist than I am. So I just asked him if he'd want to write, I would write the woman point of view and he could write the journalist point of view. And he took this leap of faith with me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I should point out too that I was not particularly convinced that this was going to work when we started it. And I know when I did it, I was kind of like, well, I'll write a chapter of this character, the reporter character. And, what's it going to cost me just to try it? And it was really just sort of an experiment to do it. And that's kind of how it evolved. I mean, I don't know that either of us was totally committed to doing it at the beginning. We wanted to
Hmm.
see how it worked. And I wrote a chapter, and then she wrote a couple chapters, then I wrote a few more chapters. And before long, we were well into the book. So it might not have worked. It could not have easily have not worked, but it worked out because I think our styles were compatible. I think the one thing about us, like Bonnie said, that we write somewhat similar, which we do, but we also write different. In
Hmm.
this book, because there's two point of views, on some hand, it's similar, but I think you can differentiate between the two voices.
Yeah, yeah. I want to ask you a little bit more about your writing process as co-authors, but I just realized I kind of jumped into this and I didn't give either of you an opportunity to really tell us what this book is about. Bonnie, do you want to, or RG, whoever is
Bonnie,
comfortable,
let Bonnie do that.
give us the elevator pitch?
Sure. So it starts out with, the tagline is Sonia's fed up with bad internet dates, but she never meant to kill anyone. So she's, kind of got this revenge thing against the jerky guys that she's meeting, and she's doing, a bunch of little things, nothing major. And then it starts off when she confronts this guy, and I won't give away what happens, but it results in him dying. And she didn't mean it, but then she's like freaking out and she's got to like cover her tracks. And so she's super nervous and trying to make sure that somebody doesn't figure out what she did on the app. And then the really interesting part for me was I didn't tell RG like how he was going to figure it out. I didn't have, when I came up with the idea for the book, I didn't even know how I would go about like connecting the two of them. So when he came back
Mm.
with his chapters about how he starts to connect and I saw where he was going, I was like, oh, it was so interesting because I got to be like the writer and the reader at the same time. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's really creative. Like I wouldn't have thought of that if I did that by myself, but that's a really good idea for the way he connects. So I don't want to give up too much of the plot, but this reporter, Jake Parker, he was a Pulitzer nominee. His career has seen better days, but he's working for this website called The American Scene. And it's not what he wants to do, but it's the only job, available. And so he goes undercover to do this story about, dating apps at the behest of his boss. And then he starts suspecting that something's going on. But I don't want to say how he suspects it or how he figures
Mhm.
it out. But eventually, and there is, someone actually doing things even worse on the app, um, and neither of them knows this. So I think that's the gist of it, right? Is that about as much as we can tell people without?
Yeah, yeah. It's dating apps. There's murders, and no one knows quite how they're happening or why. And the interesting thing about it, I think, was I'm the kind of writer who does not. I don't know about you, Tracy, but I'm not the person who plots everything out and has everything outlined. I don't think Bonnie is either. And in this case, it was even stranger because neither of us, when we started this book, really had any idea of where we were going with it or what the ending was going to be. And so we like she said, we would surprise each other. She had one of the murders. I'm like reading one of her chapters ago. I go like, whoa, where did that come from? And then I had a situation where Sonia is put in a situation where she did the same. She went, oh my God, so it was really interesting because as a writer, I like to surprise myself, but we were surprising ourselves and surprising each other along the way. And hopefully that was made it a more interesting book.
I find that just fascinating that you guys did not do any kind of plotting or brainstorming or anything with this. You just got to it. Now, as far as your process goes, uh, so did one of you so like Bonnie, did you take Sonya's character POV and then RG, did you do Jake's POV? So
Yeah.
that's how you split it up. And then did you edit each other's work? Is that how you did that? Kind of went over each other's work?
A
Uh,
little,
I
a
was going to
little.
say Bonnie did actually most of the putting together. One of the things that she did in the beginning too, and not in the beginning, afterwards, was we moved some of the chapters around the focus. But yeah, I think a lot of that happened there. But again, it was just all a work in progress. I think we started out with the idea we were going to do alternating chapters, then we were going to do
Yeah.
alternating three chapters. But as the book began to flow, we realized there was a period. Now the one issue that got a little tricky, being 5,000 miles away from Bonnie, is when we at some point in the book, Jake, the reporter, meets Sonia, the main character, and there's interrelation between them, which becomes very important to the book. And that's the part where we had to work more closely together on it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and that's the part that I think it was kind of easy in the beginning because Sonia and Jake didn't know each other. So I'm just writing my characters and then Dick's writing his characters. But then at some point, I had to write Jake or other characters that he created, which is a little bit
Yeah.
different. I interviewed someone once who took over a series for an author who had passed away, and he was saying that that was one of the things that was tricky about it is you have to like write someone else's character that didn't come out of your
Mm.
head. And so that's kind of what I had to do. Like when I'm doing Jake's dialogue in Sonia's POV
Yeah.
to make sure. And so we did kind of check each other on that, like make sure that we're, um, staying true to the character
Got the
that
voice.
they created.
Yeah. So you had veto power on your characters. So if you didn't think that Sonya's voice was quite right when RG uh typed it up or wrote it, you're like, I think I would tweak it this way, and so you guys were okay with that. No, that's kind of how
Oh,
it worked for you.
we fought bitterly and angrily pretty much the whole time. I mean, if we had been not 5,000 miles away, we might have killed each.
Yeah.
No, the truth of the matter is, and it's just personalities. I don't think you said veto, but I don't think, that kind of a thing. It was never, oh, no, Bonnie, you
Hmm.
can't say that, or no, Dick, you can't say that. I think because we kind of both respected each other's work, we really worked pretty well on it. And everybody kind of just added something like, well, what if we did this instead of this? In fact, the only real negative thing from Bonnie came when I turned in my first chapter, and she was appalled that I knew so little about dating apps, which I knew nothing. Bonnie knows a lot about dating apps. She can reveal the secret about it, but she met a very important person in her life on a dating app.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I turned in my first chapter, she said, no one's going to believe that Jake Parker is going to be this ignorant about dating apps. And I said, well, I am, and that's why I wrote it like that. So I had to tweak that so he wasn't as unknowledgeable, as me. But I think part of the interesting thing about this is that he's not a guy who's into dating apps. He's trying to learn about it as he's doing the reporting, which I think makes it more interesting as an investigation.
Well, RG, if it makes you feel any better, I had to look up what catfishing was. I'm like, what is
Wow.
this? Yeah, so I know absolutely nothing about dating apps either, and I was like, oh my gosh, does this stuff really happen? Bonnie, what
Well,
was
I'm
your
not, I'm not,
experience?
I'm not like an expert on dating apps. I mean, I actually met my second husband, my current husband, there's only been two, not like there's been a million. My second husband, but I had to actually correct myself. I said I met him on a dating app, but it was a website back then. Like they didn't have apps. So this is like 15 years
Hmm.
ago.
Yeah,
So actually the only time I've seen the ones where you swipe is when like my daughter was on it with, that's actually how she
yeah,
met her husband. Some of my friends have been on them, but I haven't actually done them, but I've been around it enough to know
yeah,
how the system works, but it changes all the time. So
yeah,
Well,
anyway.
I would say too that one of the things that Jake does, especially in the beginning of the book, because he's just trying to find out about dating apps, is I have him go through a whole lot of experiences, wild, wacky, weird experiences with women he meets
yeah.
who do crazy things. And I tried to think up the most bizarre, absurd things I can think of. And then I would like Google stuff and look online, and I found out they had all happened. And I think pretty much everything in the book, which is all Jake's dating experiences. And oh boy, there's crazy women who want to marry him on the first date. There's threesome things. There's all sorts of bizarre stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, and also some of that to Sonia too. I think most of it is all based in reality. These things really do
They
happen.
do happen.
Yeah.
We could not be creative enough, Bonnie and I, to come up with something actually happening out there on the dating apps.
So, Bonnie, what do you hope readers think about long after they close the covers of Swipe? What do you hope they hang on to?
But one of the things that I don't want to, it's so hard to answer a question like that because you don't want to tell the full character arc.
Yeah.
But, Sonya does kind of have some realizations about herself and her behavior. And I think that that's something that maybe readers could take away from that. Also, just be careful out there. Don't be. I mean, I saw looking for Mr. Goodbar. Right, you can meet a crazy person anywhere at any time. It's like it's not just dating apps, but I think you have to be really careful in this day and age because people can find out so much about you and there's so
Mhm.
much opportunity for things to go south that just the normal things that you would do, tell your friend, meet in a public place, let people know who this person is. And just, I mean, they have all these cautions on the apps themselves. They don't want bad things to happen. They want
Yeah.
they want you to find your match. So, and I guess in some ways it's a book that remains at the end guardedly optimistic about love. So I
Yeah.
hope people walk away with that.
Yeah.
I've,
Yeah.
I've been asked this same question in a few other interviews, and my answer is a little different than Bonnie's in that I'm not really looking to give a message or anything. I just want it to be an interesting, fun read. I'm
Hmm.
not looking people to learn from it or anything. I'm sort of believe if you're familiar with it, the Larry David rule of comedy, which is no lessons are learned, nobody comes away with any message. It's just interesting or fun. I just want it to be a good read for people. I want people to be surprised and stunned and happy, sad, everything. That's really all I think I was doing when I was trying to write this book.
Well, I think you both can say mission accomplished because I think you both achieved what you wanted to achieve with the book. It's an amazing book, and I hope readers pick it up. On May 1st, right, is when it comes out, May 1st?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a little vague. I think the print copies come out a few days before that on
Hmm.
being sent out, and then the ebook on May 1st.
Yeah.
yeah, the April 22nd, 27th is the print book, and May 1st is the ebook.
Okay. All right. Great. Um, what I like to ask guests on the show is to tell us about a recent book that you've read and loved, and maybe tell us why. Bonnie, do you want to get us started?
Yes, I actually read Leanne Moriarty's Here One Moment recently, and it was such a great read. I've been reading a lot of thrillers, and she kind of, I'm Big Little Lies maybe could be a mystery thriller, but
Yeah.
um, the premise is that this woman um, on this short flight from Hobart to Sydney, Australia, stands up and starts telling people when and how they're going to die. And I was just like, this was
Ah,
such an interesting idea, and
yeah.
where did you get this idea? Did someone do this on a plane? I'm thinking, and so when you follow it through, it becomes actually a lot about the tension between free will and fate, and
Mm,
the power of suggestion. So that's all I'll say. But I really
okay.
enjoyed it. It was a nice kind of break from the kind of books I normally read.
Yeah. Sounds amazing. How about you, RG?
Well, I'll give you just two names. Actually, I recently discovered a guy named Riley Sager. And
Mm,
I have just fallen in love with all of his books. Starts with The Final Girls, and
mm,
they're kind of a mix of supernatural and he's an ex-newspaper man too. And so I got a chance to interview him for the Big Thrill magazine, and so I'm a big fan. But I think my all-time favorite is, and has been for years and years, is I just read everything Michael Connelly turns out.
mm.
And and he turns out a lot, and he's got another one coming out now. I love all the characters, but especially the Harry Bosch. In fact, I'm just gone back, and which is always fun to do. I've just gone back and reading one of his called The Scarecrow now, because it's about amazingly enough, it's about a newspaper man going after a serial killer. So I can kind of identify that. And there's a lot of great authors, but those are the two right now that I really have been getting. I just get a lot of enjoyment out of.
All right, great. Thanks. Both winners in my book as well. Bonnie, before we go, can you tell us what's next? What is next up for you? Will there be another collaboration, or are you both working on separate projects now?
We're working on separate projects. There's no real plan for a collaboration. I have an audiobook with Podium Entertainment coming out this summer,
Yay.
audio version of my book, The Unforgetting, which I'm really excited about because Helen Laser is going to be doing the narrating, and she's really super great. So I'm very lucky to have her on my team. And then I have another manuscript out for submission, kind of like a typical domestic psychological thriller type popcorn thriller that I write. And then I'm also working on something that's a little different for me. And I'm just kind of noodling on that. I've got about 30,000 words, and it's a little bit more of a high concept, a little darker. So we'll see how
All
that goes.
right. All right, great. How about you, RG?
Well, it's interesting if people who've read my stuff will know that my normal stuff is a lot different than the writing, because that's much more like Bonnie writes the psychological thrillers. I write mostly more, heavy duty crime stuff. And the next book that I definitely have coming out is called The Mogul. And this, I think it's kind of interesting. It's going to be coming out in 2026. And it's sort of like a look over several decades. It's a standalone book about a newspaper media tycoon. And, I would draw the comparison, not that I'm comparing myself to this, but it's sort of like a Citizen Kane of situation where you have a media guy who goes from being a pretty good guy into like descending into evil and darkness. And I put a lot into my own experiences into that. So I'm really looking forward to that. Other than that, I've just recently finished a book called Primetime Crime, which is about a child star whose TV show ended when she was 12 years old because her co-star was murdered. And her life went downhill afterwards. And now she's like 15 years later, and she goes back to try and find out what really happened. I
Ah,
kind of like the angle. And
mm,
finally, for people who followed me, they know that my ongoing series at the moment has been the Clare Carlson series, which is about a TV newswoman in New York. I've done 6 of these. The most recent one came out in paperback in February. And I'm hoping to be able to do some more of those, in the upcoming years too. So it'll keep Bonnie and I busy doing all this,
yeah.
and maybe we'll even find time to do another book together.
Well, there's lots to love there, sounds like, from both of you. So great. Um, did you have something you want to say, Bonnie?
Oh, I was going to say, like, one nice thing about this is that we become kind of writing buddies, so we can trade, manuscripts and look at each other's work,
Yeah,
give each other feedback, which is really nice to have. So
yeah,
I
it is.
appreciate his eye on that.
Well,
Great.
Tracey, I'm sure you have some of the same thing. It's like, when you talk writing to your friends, a lot of them are bored by it because they don't really care or know about it,
So
or
true.
they sort of tolerate it. And like with each other, with us, we know that we can call each other up, and just the other day, I was upset about something, and I just went off on this rant, and 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 uh, and I said, I'm sorry, but I just need someone to rant to, and Bonnie was like, no, no, that's fine. Now can I rant at you? Everything. And because it's just nice to have somebody who's able to understand a lot of and
Yeah.
as you probably know, maybe you're different, but as wonderful as a writing career can be, it's filled with some frustration too.
No, sure, absolutely. It's nice to have somebody you can geek out to and confide in for sure. I've got one of those as well, so it's really nice. So, Bonnie, where is the best place for readers to find you online?
Probably either my Amazon webpage or my own webpage, which is just my name, Bonnie Traymore.
Okay.
And then I'm on Facebook with my author page quite a bit, which is also my name. A little bit on Instagram. I think I have a profile on TikTok, but I'm not on it a lot.
Yeah.
So mostly I engage more. I found more engagement on Facebook because that's where I find a lot of like book clubs, so
Hmm.
like psych thriller book clubs and things like that.
Okay. All right, great. How about you, RG?
I have a website, www.rgbelsky.com, and I try and keep it up to date like most authors. I feel that I don't keep as up to date as you always want to, but you'll find stuff about all my books on there as well as about Swipe. But like Bonnie, I do a lot of promotion on Facebook on 2 pages. I have a personal page, Dick Belsky, which is the name I use as a journalist. And then I have an author page of RG Belsky, and a lot of the same stuff on each. But Facebook is very user friendly to do that, and I do a little bit on Twitter. But I would say the Facebook page and my website would be the two main places.
Okay, great. All right. Well, folks, when this episode airs, Swipe will be out, so be sure and grab your copy. Uh, Bonnie and RG, thanks a ton. Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Thanks a ton, and it was such a pleasure talking to you both about Swipe. I wish you both many, many sales and good luck with your individual projects that you have going, and I hope to see another collaboration in the future for sure.
Well, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. And it's always fun chatting with you. I love your interviews. They're
Oh, thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, and we're both going to be at Thriller Fest. Hopefully, we'll see.
Yay. Yeah,
Uh,
I will be there.
if
Yeah.
anybody wants to meet us there, that's the place to be.
All right. Sounds good. Well, many thanks to everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll be back soon with another great read.